So this is the story of our first big RV trip from Pittsburgh to Seattle and back. We had a lot of great stops like the Badlands and Deadwood and Yellowstone.
And everything broke.
Not everything.
Well, nearly everything broke, but we persevered. And so here's part one. Bye, Blue House. See you in 5 weeks.
All is going well for day one until, as we're backing into our campsite in Woodland Village, smoke starts billowing out of the engine compartment, which we suspect is a bad sign. Under the RV, there's orange fluid everywhere. We notice the fluid is orange, so that tells us that it must be the coolant, or the brake fluid, or the hydraulic fluid for the leveling system. They're all orange. The management at Woodland Village is really great. And it's July 4th, no one's going to fix our RV that night. So we settle down for the evening, knowing there's a repair shop just down the street, not knowing that it's closed a few weeks earlier. And not knowing that we were 50 yards from some railroad tracks.
Dominiscum biscum. Ecum spiritu tuo. Where are we?
We are in Portage, Indiana.
Cheers.
So, the smoke was due to hydraulic fluid pouring out all over the engine. And it turned out that was just the leveling system, so it really didn't cause any problems that we made several hours of phone calls. So we could drive on to Albert Lea, Minnesota the next day without any problems at all.
Well, except for the alarm, the leveling system alarm that went off every 4 minutes for 30 seconds.
Yeah, but I fixed that by removing the control panel and disconnecting the cable.
He fixed that after I drove for 2 hours listening to that.
I think Gene greatly exaggerates how bad that was, but in fact, I did disconnect the alarm when it was my turn to drive. But we made it. You want to do the honors?
Yes, so Dominiscum biscum, now we enter Minnesota. Ecum spiritu tuo. So here's to making it to Minnesota. Cheers.
Cheers.
Ha!
Actually, we're still just a little outside of Albert Lea.
Shut up, Greg.
It was a beautiful sunset though, wasn't it?
It was, yes, it was a beautiful sunset.
Traveling through South Dakota, vast multitudes of insects sacrifice their lives in a vain attempt to hinder our progress westward. Eat a lot of this stuff, or you should give up taking video through your front windshield. We stayed at the Sleepy Hollow Campground, which is in Wall, South Dakota, just outside the Badlands National Park, and also, of course, the home of Wall Drug Store. Saturday morning, ready to hit the Badlands. We'll show more of the Badlands in another video. Of course, after visiting the Badlands, we also had to stop by and see Wall Drug Store in Wall, South Dakota, especially after seeing maybe 50 to 100 billboards as we traveled across South Dakota advertising for it. It's a short drive from Wall to Deadwood, South Dakota, which features its patron saint, Wild Bill Hickok, and many Wild West reenactments, including the reenactment in this restaurant of the actual shooting of Wild Bill as he played poker.
August 2nd, 1876. 75. Frank Bryant.
The town has many other restaurants, bars, and casinos. Our kind of place. That we only had one day, because we had to use another day to drive back to the Camping World in Rapid City, because they were kind enough to fit us into their schedule and actually did a great job of repairing our leveling system in a few hours. On the drive back to Deadwood from Rapid City, we stopped first at Mount Rushmore, which is a spectacular sight and certainly worth seeing. I think we enjoyed the Crazy Horse Memorial even more, which has been under construction from the 1940s.
One of the largest Native American Indian museums, well, it is probably the largest in South Dakota, but in the country. They have a 20-minute movie when you go in here. It'll give kind of a backdrop of what's happened so far and bring you up to speed on everything that's going on.
Before going on to Yellowstone, we actually spent one night in Bozeman, Montana to resupply and pick up our rental car, so we had that for the drive. They had the car all ready for us.
But they lost the keys. So they upgraded us to a Chrysler 300, which, as you know, is a really upscale car with all of the most advanced technology you could ever ask for.
So off we went to Red Cliff Campgrounds just north of Yellowstone.
And it really is a beautiful, beautiful campground. Very rustic. We were completely off the grid. I found it to be gorgeous. There was wildlife around us already. There was a beautiful river flowing by.
So the next morning, we got up and drove maybe about 45 minutes through beautiful territory to the entrance of Yellowstone Park and started through the first of 2 different 3-hour loops we planned on. Driving down, saw the standard things like Old Faithful. It was a nice drive on our fancy Chrysler car.
Right, and then right near the end of that loop, all of that great technology came into play.
Where the end of the loop is kind of the furthest from the gate that you can be.
Yes, the furthest from the gate that you could be. Not 1, not 2, but absolutely every single alarm went on at the same time.
And then it was kind of neat because at some point the windshield wiper went on and started going back and forth. I couldn't actually turn it off. I've never seen that before.
And the gear shift dial started shifting back and forth from park to reverse. Fortunately, we were stopped.
It's not the kind of behavior you normally expect in a Chrysler.
But it had all that high technology, and I guess it wanted to show us what it could do.
We weren't too far from one of the only service stations in that area, and so I was lucky that a young man walked across from the service station and hooked up his computer to get a readout to see what was going on. And he started laughing and then asked me, "Were you going 120 miles an hour with your parking brake on?" And I told him I didn't recall doing that. So he reset the alarms. I guess then we drove out.
Wait,
Oh, wait.
I got to drive out.
Okay.
'Cause
Jean drove out.
If it's about alarms, I get to drive.
She specializes in alarms going off.
So that was about an hour drive to get to civilization where we could actually do something about this with all of those alarms going off.
Where doing something was actually first calling Budget because they had a small office nearby and had a car available. So a nice woman from Budget drove down and met us with a car, and we left our Hertz rental on the side of the road for Hertz to pick up.
It was on the same side that the bar was on that we immediately ran to and had big beers.
So it all worked out.
Yeah.
Jean's favorite beer was called Moose Drool, which actually tasted a lot better than it sounds. One of the unusual features of Yellowstone is the traffic tie-up can actually be very interesting. Oh, no, we're going to have to wait. There's the slowpoke coming up there. Not sure what to do. So we returned our rental car and headed on to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, just one day away from Seattle.
Except we had another major equipment failure, which I like to refer to as the birth of the John B. Sale.
But we're putting that in part 2. Please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, whatever helps us get this off the ground.